I'm 75 years old, and I'm waiting to die. The dementia is eating my brain one memory at a time, but it won't take the one I need it to. The man I loved is dead. My daughters are gone. And I'm still here, remembering everything I wish I could forget. If you know what it feels like to be forgotten by the people you gave everything to, hit that like button right now and subscribe to my 10 p.m. stories, because this one's going to break you. My name is Alice. I don't know what day it is anymore, but I know it's less cold today. Cold enough to think clearly for the first time in weeks. And when I think clearly, I remember him. Thomas. Paris. The room in Rome. London in the rain. 10 years of marriage. 2 daughters. Then nothing. Just decades of nothing. And now this hospital bed. Tonight before the fog takes me again, I'm telling you everything. Paris, 1972. I was 25 and didn't believe in fate until I saw him standing under the
Cherry blossom in Jardin du Luxembourg.
He was reading a book, and when he looked up, something in the universe shifted. I felt it in my chest, a pull like gravity rearranging itself around this stranger. Excusez-moi, he said in the worst French I'd ever heard. I laughed. I couldn't help it. American? I asked. Guilty, he smiled. I'm looking for the best cafe in the Latin Quarter. I knew one. Of course I knew one. We walked for 6 hours that day, through narrow streets that smelled like rain and bread. And wine. He told me he was an architect, that he was in Paris for 3 weeks, that he designed buildings that let light in. I told him I wanted to be a writer, that I was working in a bookshop, that I'd never met anyone who talked about light the way he did. At midnight, we stood on Pont des Arts. Come with me to Rome, he said. I should have said no. I said yes. 3 weeks later, I left everything, my job, my apartment, my life, and followed Thomas to Rome. We lived in one room with peeling paint and a window that overlooked a courtyard where an old woman hung laundry every morning. The mattress was on the floor. We had a hot plate and 2 plates and a belief that love was enough. For 6 months it was. Thomas would sketch buildings during the day, while I attempted to write. Mostly I watched him work. The way his hands moved across paper. The way he'd bite his lip when he was concentrating. The way he'd look up and catch me staring and smile like he knew exactly what I was thinking. We made love in the afternoons when the light was gold. We cooked pasta that was more garlic than anything else. We were broke and stupid and happier than I've ever been. But even then, there were things he wouldn't tell me. He'd wake up gasping in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat. Just a dream, he'd say. But his hands shook when he held me. There were phone calls Thomas would take in the hallway. Meetings he'd return from with his jaw tight and his eyes somewhere else. Once, I found him at the window at 3 in the morning, just staring into nothing. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing. Everything's perfect. It wasn't. I knew it wasn't. But I was 25 and in love, and love makes you believe lies that are easier than the truth. So I didn't push. I didn't ask about the nightmares or the phone calls or the way he'd sometimes look at me like he was memorizing my face for when I'd be gone. We married in London that autumn. Just us and 2 strangers we pulled off the street as witnesses. The registrar rushed through the ceremony, because he had another appointment. It rained the entire time. Thomas slipped a gold band on my finger in a room that smelled like wet wool and old paper. Afterward, we ate fish and chips on a park bench. I'll build you a house, he promised. Windows everywhere. You'll write in the sunlight. I didn't need a house. I just needed him. We moved to a small town outside London. Thomas joined an architecture firm. I found work at a bookshop and wrote in the evenings at a desk by the window. It was ordinary. It was everything I'd ever wanted. Sophie was born on a snowy December morning. I'd never felt pain like that. Like my body was being torn open to make room for something bigger than myself. But when they put her in my arms, she looked at me with Thomas's eyes, and I understood why people say love hurts. 2 years later, Emma came, red-faced and screaming imperfect. Our little house filled with chaos. Toys everywhere. Laundry piled high. Dinners that were half-eaten, and bedtimes that were negotiated like hostage situations. Thomas would come home from work and sweep the girls into his arms, and they'd shriek with laughter, and I'd watch from the doorway thinking, this is it. This is what I was made for. But the shadows followed us from Rome. Thomas still had nightmares. Still took phone calls he wouldn't explain. Still looked at our daughters sometimes like he was afraid they'd disappear. What are you scared of? I asked him one night after I found him standing in the girls' doorway at 2 a.m, just watching them sleep. He looked at me for a long time. For a moment, I thought he'd finally tell me the truth. Instead, he said, losing this. Losing you. You won't, I promised. God, I was so stupid. 10 years. We had 10 years of marriage. 10 years of ordinary moments that felt like miracles. Birthday parties and scraped knees and bedtime stories. Arguments about money. And makeup, sex, and Sunday mornings in bed while the girls watched cartoons downstairs. It was messy and exhausting and beautiful. I thought we'd grow old together. I thought we'd watch our daughters graduate and get married and have children of their own. I thought we had time. We didn't. It was a Tuesday in March. Raining. Thomas kissed me goodbye that morning like he always did. Kissed Sophie. Kissed Emma. I'll be home by 6, he said. We'll make that pasta Sophie likes. He never came home. The police came at 8:30. 2 officers with rain dripping off their coats and expressions I'd seen in movies but never thought I'd see directed at me.
Un motorway accident.
A lorry that jackknifed it in the rain. Multiple vehicles. They said he died instantly. They said he didn't suffer. I remember nodding. I remember thanking them, which is insane, but I did. I thanked them for coming to tell me my husband was dead. After they left, I stood in the kitchen for an hour. I don't know why. I just stood there, staring at the pasta sauce I'd been making, watching it congeal in the pot. The girls were at my mother's house. I was alone. And I remember thinking very clearly, I don't know how to do this. The funeral was a week later. People came. People said things. I don't remember what. Sophie cried the entire time. Emma, who was only 3, kept asking when Daddy was coming home. I didn't know how to answer that. How do you explain death to a 3-year-old when you don't understand it yourself? I didn't cry. Not then. Not for months. I found his sketchbooks a month after the funeral, hidden in a box in the closet. Page after page of buildings he'd never built. And in the back, drawings of a house. Our house. The one he'd promised to make for me. Windows everywhere. A desk position to catch the morning light. I burned them. Every single page. I watched the paper curl and blacken in the sink, and I felt nothing. That's when I knew something inside me had broken. The life insurance wasn't enough. It covered the funeral, and bought us maybe 6 months if we were careful. After that, I was on my own. Me and 2 little girls and a mortgage I couldn't afford on a bookshop salary. I sold the house. We moved to a flat that was half the size and smelled like mold. I worked 3 jobs. Mornings at the bookshop. Afternoons cleaning offices. Evenings waitressing at a pub where men would look at me with pity or something worse. Sophie learned to make dinner. Emma learned to be quiet. I learned that survival isn't the same as living. Emma cried herself to sleep every night for a year. I'd lie in bed and listen to her through the thin walls and know I should go to her, hold her, tell her it would be okay. But I couldn't move. I was drowning, and some nights I wasn't sure I wanted to keep swimming. Sophie stopped talking about Thomas. She was 7, old enough to understand that mentioning him made me disappear even when I was standing right there. She became the little mother. Made sure Emma brushed her teeth. Packed both their lunches. Reminded me about parent-teacher conferences I'd forget. A 7-year-old shouldn't have to be that responsible. But I couldn't be what they needed. I was barely surviving. The years blurred. Work and bills and exhaustion. The girls did their homework at the pubs. Corner table while I served pints. We ate pasta 4 nights a week because it was cheap. Christmas was presents from charity shops, wrapped in newspaper. Birthdays were homemade cakes that never rose properly. I told myself I was doing my best. I told myself they'd understand when they were older. They didn't. Sophie turned 18 and got a scholarship to a university 3 hours away. She packed her bags the day after graduation. I watched her load everything into a friend's car and I wanted to beg her to stay, but I couldn't. She'd earned her escape. I'll visit, she said. She didn't. 2 years later, Emma left for London. She'd found a job, a flat, a life that didn't include me. She called once a month at first, then once every few months, then just texts on my birthday and Christmas. I was 51 when they left. Alone in that moldy flat with 3 jobs I hated and a grief that had become so familiar I didn't know who I'd be without it. I thought about Thomas constantly. Wondered what he'd say if he could see us. Wondered if he'd be disappointed in how I'd raised our daughters. Wondered if he'd even recognize the woman I'd become, hollowed out and bitter and so tired. I worked for another 15 years. Retired at 66 with barely enough pension to cover rent. And then I started forgetting. Small things at first. Names. Where I'd put my keys. What day it was. I laughed it off. Just getting old, I told myself. Everyone forgets things. But it got worse. I'd find myself in rooms with no memory of how I got there. I'd start cooking dinner and forget I'd already eaten. I'd call Sophie's phone and forget why by the time she answered, on the rare occasions she did. One morning, I woke up and made breakfast for Thomas. Set 2 plates. Made his coffee. The way he liked it. Sat at the table waiting for him to come downstairs. It took 3 hours before I remembered he was dead. That's when I knew. The doctor confirmed it 6 months later. Early stage dementia. It would get worse. There was no cure. Just medication to slow it down, and a lot of medical jargon I didn't understand. He asked if I had family who could help. I lied and said yes. Sophie came once after the diagnosis. She sat across from me in the cafe near her office, and I could see her mentally calculating how much time she'd have to sacrifice. We'll figure something out, she said. If your heart is already heavy, leave a comment telling me you're still here. Hit the bell icon, so you never miss a story that cuts this deep. Share this if you've ever felt invisible to the people who should see you most. We didn't figure anything out. Sophie called a few times, asking questions about bills and medication. Then the calls stopped. Emma sent a check once. I never cashed it. I didn't blame them. How could I? I was a reminder of everything painful. Their fathers. Death or poverty, my failure to be the mother they deserved. I was the weight they needed. To shed to fly. But God, the silence was heavy. The dementia progressed faster than the doctors predicted. Within a year, I couldn't work anymore. Couldn't always remember to pay bills or take medication or eat. A social worker found me wandering 3 blocks from my flat at 2 in the morning in my nightgown, convinced I was looking for Thomas. That's how I ended up here. In this hospital bed. This white room with machines that beep. And nurses who speak to me like I'm a child. They're kind, but they're strangers. And when you're dying, you want your people around you. But my people are gone. Thomas is dead. My daughters have lives I'm not part of. And I'm alone with memories that are slipping away. Except for the memories of him. Those won't leave. Thomas visits me sometimes. I know he's not real. Some rational part of my brain understands that. But I see him standing in the corner of the room. Young and beautiful like he was in Paris. He doesn't speak. Just watches with those kind eyes that made me follow him to Rome. I tried, I tell him. I tried to take care of them. He smiles, but there's sadness in it. The doctors say I'm hallucinating. That it's common with dementia. They adjusted my medication, but he still comes. Usually at night when the hospital is quiet and the darkness presses against the windows. Sometimes I talk to him for hours. Tell him about the girls, about how Sophie became a lawyer and Emma works in publishing. I don't know if that's true. I haven't spoken to them in so long, but it's the story I tell myself. The story where they're successful and happy and don't need their broken mother dragging them down. Sometimes I ask him about the nightmares. About the phone calls. About what he was so afraid of. He never answers. Chapter 13, 200 words. Sophie came to visit last month. Or maybe it was last week. Time doesn't work properly anymore. She sat in the chair beside my bed and held my hand. And for a moment I didn't recognize her. This woman with gray in her hair and lines around her eyes. Then she said, "Hi, Mum." And I remembered. She cried. I watched tears run down her face, and I didn't know what to do. Should I comfort her? Was I supposed to feel something? "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there." For what? I wanted to ask. But the words wouldn't come. She stayed for an hour. Told me about her life. A husband, a son I've never met, a house in a neighborhood I'll never see. She showed me pictures on her phone. I nodded and smiled. But I couldn't connect this life she was describing to the 7-year-old who used to pack Emma's lunch. When she left, she kissed my forehead. "I love you," she said. I believed her. But love without presence is just a word. Emma sent flowers. Yellow roses. The nurse put them on the table by my bed and said, "How lovely. From your daughter." I stared at them for an hour, trying to remember if yellow roses meant something. If they were my favorite. If Emma knew that or if she'd just guessed. I couldn't remember. That's what dementia does. It doesn't just take your memories, it takes your certainty. Everything becomes maybe. Maybe those were my favorite flowers. Maybe Thomas and I danced at our wedding. Maybe I was a good mother. Maybe my daughters don't hate me, maybe. Maybe. The doctors say I don't have long now. My body is shutting down. They've made me comfortable, which is medical speak for "we're helping you die." I have a morphine drip I can control. When the pain gets bad, I press the button, and the world goes soft and distant. I press it more often lately. Not because of physical pain, but because the soft and distant feels better than the sharp and present. In the fog, I can almost convince myself that Thomas is really here, that my daughters are just downstairs, that everything's going to be okay. But today the weather is less cold, and for the first time in weeks, my mind is clear. Terribly, horribly clear. And I can see it all, the whole story from beginning to end. Paris, Rome, London, 10 years of marriage, 2 daughters, 1 accident, decades of survival, and now, this. Dying alone in a room that smells like antiseptic and sadness. Was it worth it? That's the question I keep coming back to. If I'd known how it would end, with me dying, alone while my daughters lived lives I'm not part of, would I still have said yes on that bridge? In Paris? I think so. God help me, I think so. Because even now, even with everything I've lost, I can close my eyes and feel his hand in mine. I can smell the rain in London. I can hear Sophie's laugh when she was small. I can see Emma's face the first time she read a book by herself. Those moments were real. They happened. And dementia might be taking them from me, but it can't erase the fact that they existed. That I loved and was loved, even if it was brief. The nurse tells me Sophie called. She's coming tomorrow. Or today. I'm not sure. Time has lost all meaning. I want to tell her things. Important things. But I can't remember what they are. Something about Thomas. Something about how hard I tried. Something about love and sacrifice and how both can destroy you if you're not careful. Or maybe I just want to tell her I'm tired, that I'm so tired. Tired of forgetting. Tired of this half-life where the past is more real than the present. Tired of machines beeping and nurses checking vitals and doctors making optimistic noises about managing my symptoms when we all know I'm dying. I asked them to turn off the machines. The ones keeping track of my heart rate and blood pressure and all the ways my body is failing. They hesitated but agreed. Now it's just me and the quiet and Thomas in the corner watching. Soon, I ask him. He nods. I'm not afraid. That surprises me. I thought I would be. But dying feels like the most natural thing in the world. Like stepping off a train at the end of a very long journey. I've been thinking about the things Thomas never told me. The nightmares. The phone calls. The fear in his eyes when he looked at our daughters. I'll never know what he was running from. I'll never know if the secrets he kept were small or catastrophic. I'll never know if he loved me the way I loved him, or if I was just the life he chose because he couldn't have the one he wanted. And I've realized, it doesn't matter. He's been dead for 40 years. Our daughters are grown. I'm dying. The secrets died with him, and soon I'll die too, and none of it will matter to anyone but me. That's the thing they don't tell you about grief. It's not the big, dramatic moments that destroy you. It's the quiet realization that the person you loved is gone, and all the questions you should have asked will never be answered. It's the weight of carrying their memory alone, until even that's taken from you. I loved him. He's gone. That's the whole story, and it's both too simple and too complicated to bear. The morphine is calling me. I can feel it, that soft distance where nothing hurts, and Thomas feels real and time doesn't exist. I've been pressing the button less today, because I wanted to remember. I wanted one last moment of clarity before the end. But I'm done now. I've told the story. I've looked at it from every angle. I've forgiven what I can and accepted what I can't. There's nothing left to do but let go. Sophie will come tomorrow. Or she won't. Emma will cry when she gets the call, or she won't. The nurses will check on me every few hours until they find me gone, and they'll call it a peaceful passing. They'll say I died in my sleep, that I didn't suffer. They'll be half right. I've been suffering for 40 years. Since Thomas died. Since the girls left. Since my brain started eating itself. This isn't a peaceful passing. It's an escape. And I'm ready for it. I reach for the morphine button. My hand is shaking, but I find it. Press it. Feel the warmth spread through my veins. Thomas smiles at me from the corner. The room is getting softer. The edges are blurring. The machines are fading away. It's just me and Thomas now, like it was in the beginning. Just us and the cherry blossoms in Paris. The tiny room in Rome. And the bridge where he asked me to come with him. I'm back there now. 25 years old. And standing on Pont d'Arts with the whole world ahead of me. Thomas is holding my hand. And I can feel the warmth of his skin, the calluses from drawing. And the way he squeezes gently like he's afraid I'll disappear. Come with me, he says. And I know where we're going now. I know what comes next. The joy and the pain. The love. And the loss. The 2 daughters who will leave, and the decades of loneliness, and the hospital bed where I'll die alone. I know all of it. And I still say yes. Because the alternative is never meeting him at all. Never loving him. Never having Sophie. And Emma. Never living any of it. And a life unlived is worse than a life that ends badly. I'm ready. I tell him. He takes my hand. Together, we walk away from the hospital bed. Away from the white room and the machines. And the body that's been failing for so long. We walk into light that feels like summer in Paris. Like rain in London. Like every good moment I've ever lived, compressed into a single, perfect instant. Behind us, the machines begin to alarm. Nurses rush in. Doctors call codes. Someone starts chest compressions, but I'm already gone. I'm already walking away with Thomas, and nothing they do can bring me back. I don't look back. There's nothing there I need anymore. Just a worn-out body and memories that were never going to last anyway. Everything that mattered, the love, the loss, the moments that made me who I was, I'm taking with me. The light gets brighter. Thomas's hand gets warmer. And I hear it, faint but unmistakable, the sound of little girls laughing. Sophie and Emma young again, whole again, waiting for us somewhere in this light. I smile. I take one last breath that isn't really a breath. And then I let go. Finally, I let go. If this story destroyed you the way it destroyed me, subscribe and turn on notifications. There's another nightmare waiting at 10 p.m. tomorrow, and you need to be there. Drop a comment if you stayed until the end. Share this with someone who needs to feel something real tonight. They found her the next morning. Peaceful, they said. A smile on her face. On the table, beside her bed, was a photograph, faded and worn, of a young woman and a young man. Beneath cherry blossoms. Their whole lives ahead of them. The clock read 10 p.m. when she stopped breathing.